Okay, finance agenda.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the Finance Agenda Finance Committee meeting of April the 7th, 4 p.m. First of all, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mayor Coburn.
Well, if everybody would join me down front, we have a special recognition this afternoon.
I'm doing, huh?
Come join us. You don't have to say anything, but you can come join us. We have a special recognition today. Stephanie was hired on with the City of Muskogee Police Department on July the 31st, 1987. She worked 16 years in patrol. She served 5 years in the headquarters division, and she leaves us as a captain in the investigations division. Stephanie looks forward to spending time flying. Now listen to this. Spending time flying fixed-wing general aviation aircraft, including recreational and competitive aerobatics. I didn't know the competitive aerobatics part about her. She has plans to pursue new interests in aviation field in the upcoming years and has been an excellent employee of the City of Muskogee and has served 27 years. And congratulations. And after you shake hands with everybody, we've got a couple things we want to give you. Okay? All right. We have two great things that we would like to give you. This one, in honor of your years of service, and then this one, in case you want to come back. You can come, key to the city, master key to the city, fits every door, every location. So if you have something you want to check on during the evening, you know, and everybody's not here, you just come check on it anytime you want. There you go. Thank you so much for your service.
You know, sometimes it's not enough to say a lot of fancy stuff about somebody who's put in the career that this lady has. So what I want to do is just simply say thank you, because you have meant something special. You have brought something to the police department and to this city that we will have a hard time replacing. And we are honored that you serve so well and so faithfully in this organization, and we're very honored to have had you as part of the Muskogee Police Department. So thank you. Appreciate you very much.
Did you find another one?
He wants to speak under yes, under general.
Oh, okay. Who is this?
Wayne Johnson.
Okay, I'd like to turn it over now to City Manager Brown, who has something he'd like to say.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Ms. Robertson from Hilldale High School, is it? Okay, one of those schools. Could you just state your name and just, you know, I received an email from Ms. Robertson earlier this week, and I think I forwarded it to you, about something that occurred that involved a 5-year-old autistic child that was reported as missing, who the police department, along with the community, actually found. So could you just say a couple of things, if you don't mind?
Sure. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to speak. I had called Mr. Brown and Chief Eskridge to just say thank you to the Muskogee Police Department for the fine job they did. I told Mr. Brown I was going to try not to get as a parent, I think you can relate. But last Tuesday evening, I came home and pulled into my neighborhood, and I saw police cars. And automatically, I started thinking bad thoughts, you know. And then I saw residents coming out, and then of course people were talking and so forth, and found out there was a 5-year-old autistic boy missing. And I stood out on the front porch and just watched as my whole neighborhood came out. And there were police cars everywhere, and what really grabbed me was the only officer that I recognized that evening was Ron Yates. And then he began to speak out on his speakerphone, and he was saying the little boy's name and said, "Hey, bud, this is Officer Yates. I just want you to know you can come out to any of our cars. You can come out to anybody here in the neighborhood, and we'll be glad to get you back home because your mom really misses you." And that, to me, really touched my heart, that they stayed, and there were many more officers to come out. And even as it began to get dark, I think people started to get a little more panicked because the child was still not home. And officers began to go door to door, knocking. And then residents, I saw people were getting on their ATVs, which I know they're not supposed to do, but this child needed to be found. And, you know, as it gets dark, you start to worry, is he gonna be okay? And I guess I got a text about 9:30 that the child had been found and returned to mom. And I just wanted to call and tell someone, please tell these men and women that are serving, thank you from the bottom of our heart for what they're doing. And I know we're always quick, and I'm guilty. You start thinking the bad things first, or you want to go tell someone, oh, so-and-so didn't do this right or do that right. But how often do we say thank you? Thank you for what you're doing. And I know they don't get paid enough, as well as our fire department, our EMS people, the people that serve our community. But also I wanted to add too, that I know several volunteer. I know an officer had volunteered a week off work to take some boys from a boys' ranch to go fishing. He didn't have to do that. He could have taken his own children and his wife on a vacation, but he did this for these boys. There were other little girls from an Indian Muro home that wanted to go to a daddy-daughter dance, but they don't have a dad. And there were police officers, reserve officers, firemen that took out their time and spent their money to come to that dance and spend some time with these little girls. There was one little girl that began to cry when she saw the police officers walk in uniform, because when she was removed from her home, it was by officers. So she thought all police officers were bad. Well, my husband was there that night and he witnessed this. But this officer got down on his knee and got to this little girl's level and began to talk to her and warmed up to her, till finally the mom from the Muro home had to pull her off of him by the time the night was over. She cried. She didn't want to leave him. She trusted him again. And I just want to say thank you again. And I know there are many more things that we don't always see. We always tend to see the bad or read the bad, you know, hear about the bad. But I want to stand here as a Muskogee resident and say thank you. I want to share the good, and I appreciate what they do.
Well, thank you, ma'am, for your comments. Thank you for Warren. That's it. Thank you, Counselor. I appreciate
All
the
right,
opportunity.
thank you. Item number 1.
Consider approval of Finance Committee minutes of 3/17/2015.
Move for approval.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed. Excuse me, Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
And the motion passes. Item number 2.
Consider approval of claims for all city departments, March 11, 2015 through April 1st, 2015.
Do we have a report from the purchasing committee?
Yes, ma'am. The purchasing committee met earlier today and reviewed the report of claims, and I move for approval.
Second.
Madam Chair, is that a typo on page 9 that
Cook Construction and Crane is all pound signs instead of a dollar amount?
We talked about that in our purchasing committee meeting, and that was only because the numbers didn't fit on the column, and we got those numbers. I did not write one of them down.
Would you like to have that?
Yes, James.
That was an amount of $709,459.05 for the
Jean's
east
here
side
and
for the east side interceptor, for their payment that they're redoing that sewer, DEQ sewer line.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call?
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
The motion passes. Item number 3.
Consider approval of a resolution declaring the parcel of property located on Finley between 28th and 30th Street as surplus property and authorize the sale of the property to Leonardo Gittens in the amount of $363 or take other necessary action.
Any comments or discussion? Oh, Mr. Tucker, would you do this
Madam
one,
Chairman,
please?
my pleasure. The City Attorney's Office received an application from Leonardo Gittens to purchase this parcel of property. The parcel is 6,750 square feet, which means that under the ordinance, the property can only be sold to an adjoining property owner. Mr. Gittens is an adjoining property owner, and his intent in purchasing this lot is to increase his lot size. He has made the requisite deposit of $363 with our office. The property is zoned R1 residential, so an extended yard would be within that approved use. Happy to answer any questions, but I recommend approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Roll call?
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
Number 4.
Consider approval of a resolution declaring the property at 1105 Holden as surplus property and authorize the sale of the property to Brenda Burkett in the amount of $1,089, $363 per lot for a total of 3 lots, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Tucker?
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, again, this is a property that we did receive an application from Ms. Burchett. Each of the 3 parcels are less than a buildable size at 6,500 square feet. They are owned R5, they are zoned R5. Ms. Burchett has made the deposit of the full amount, and she is an adjoining property owner, so as a result, it would be appropriate to approve a direct sale with her. These are in the corner. I know we've got an address here, but they're on the corner of Trumbo and Holden. That's the closest intersection. Happy to answer any questions. I recommend approval.
Move the approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
The motion is approved. Item number 5.
Consider approval of a resolution declaring the parcel of property located on the North Cherokee and Jefferson Street as surplus property and authorize the sale of the property to Kimberly Phillips in the amount of $363 or take other necessary action.
Roy?
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, this is also a property that we received an application from through the Surplus Property Program from Kimberly Phillips. This is a 7,000 square foot lot, which again falls under the buildable size requirement, which means it can be directly sold to an adjoining property owner. Ms. Phillips is an adjoining property owner. The property is zoned R1 single family. The intent to use the property is an expansion of yard, which would be appropriate in the R1 classification. Happy to answer any questions, and I recommend approval.
Move
Move
for-
the,
Go ahead.
move the approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
Okay, item number 6.
Consider rejecting all proposals received for wrecker and towing services to the city of Muskogee, and if appropriate, direct staff to resolicit for the same or take other necessary action.
Mr. Wembley.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Donnie Wembley. I am the purchasing manager for the city. Now, on January the 12th, 2015, the City Council approved the solicitation of proposal for the towing services of the city of Muskogee. February the 9th, we received only 3 proposals, and the committee was selected. They reviewed, and also they recommended the best proposal. But unfortunately, during the course of the review, it became apparent that misinformation has been provided to those who have submitted proposals. Now, due to the errors that was in submission, the staff recommends rejecting all proposals and resoliciting for the same.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a couple of people who have signed up to speak on this item. Do we want to go ahead and let them speak first before we have discussion, or the other way around?
Let's go ahead and listen to them.
Okay?
I'd like to hear what they have to say.
Is it Mike Morgan?
Nick
Nick,
Morgan.
I'm sorry. Nick Morgan? Okay. Please give us your name and address,
Nick Morgan.
and you have
20
5 minutes to speak, excuse me. I'm learning what I'm doing here.
Thank you. 2900 North David Court, Muskogee. I think it'd be a great deal for the city. I don't really need to speak, I guess, but I don't know what you really want me to say, but I think, sorry, I don't know. I just, if you need me to speak about it, I guess I could, but it's rough right now. So I don't need to talk.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Morgan?
Yeah, I don't,
Okay. Well, thank you for coming up. We have another one who has signed up, Mr. Mays, Stephen Mays. Would you like to speak?
He says no.
No, thank you. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
I guess my,
Do we have a motion in a second? We do have a motion in a second.
Well, I have some questions. I'm glad everybody wanted to motion and second this and get it off the table, but I have some questions. Are we going to put out for, I guess we're wanting to put out for bid again, or put it out again, or do we want to look at leaving it this way it's been and follow our rules that we have in place and deal with the, because the reason we have this is because the tow truck drivers that aren't showing up at wrecks and doing their tows and everything like that. So this is a great opportunity to sit here and discuss. We have it in place where we're on a rotation. We have rules in place to deal with drivers that don't show up on calls. Why can't we leave it that way and have someone enforce those rules and see what happens that way? Because apparently from all the people that's been up here and all the tow truck drivers that's been talking to us, we haven't been enforcing those rules. We haven't been cutting people loose, say you cannot be a part of the rotation because you're failing to provide the service that we ask of you. So, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, why don't we leave it the same and start enforcing rules and see if we get a better service that way and still putting it out for bid?
What is our mechanism for enforcing that?
Well, well, I do not know that specific answer. Chief Eskridge, are you able to provide some commentary on this matter? And I guess, do we have a policy and procedure for enforcement of the current practice? Because there's no contract, is what I understand.
Excuse me, there is not a policy that directs the enforcement. We have these rules, but there's really no mechanism in place that says this is what happens when you don't follow the procedures. Part of the problem is that when you have all of the different requirements that we have, it becomes cumbersome on the police officers to
manage a system that requires them to do multiple different things in regards to towing. And what we're trying to do is refine this system so that it's easier and more efficient and less time-consuming than what it is. In terms of the record companies not fully complying with the policies and procedures, there's no real policies or mechanisms in place that I know of that direct procedures for non-compliance.
And I think that's where I'd like to direct staff, is to review that policies and procedures and put some sticks in the policy that if you don't make your times at a certain time, then you come off that list and you're on probation for a year or something like that. That's what I'd like to direct staff to, is to come up to review our current policy and put some teeth into it, and so it makes it a little bit better for all of our police officers and our citizens.
So could we table this item then, or is that the best way to do it? And look at an alternative method like James just suggested, and then revisit it if we need to?
Challenge, there's a motion on the floor.
Okay.
But I am not for resoliciting. I think we need to develop procedures. City council is not for, I don't think it's our role to put the small guys out of business.
I don't
The city is for development of businesses, not for putting them out. And we are here that we need to develop procedures to make sure things are in place. So I would not be for resolution, but there's a motion on the floor right now.
Mr. Wembley, if I may ask, the 3 proposals, it was 3 out of how many that could have submitted?
There was just 3 proposals.
In comparison to the number of tow truck
There could be as many as
businesses.
about a dozen. I
Right,
think.
it could
How many are on the rotation?
That I don't know. You would have to ask the police department. That's
There's about 12.
Well, they could all have been bad about showing up.
And I think that we're just talking maybe 1 or 2. That's it.
Well, they need to be warned that they need to be there.
So the motion on the floor is to reject and rebid.
Yes.
Yes. Is there a second?
Yeah, there was a second.
It's the second.
But the reason why I asked the question is because I want to be certain that those individuals who did not bid the first time, was there something that precluded them from doing that? Was the process too complicated? Was it too confusing? Was it misleading?
with RFP that went out to everyone. There was just only 3 that sent in proposals. The other ones did not. I don't know the reason why they didn't submit their proposals.
Okay.
The challenge is also numbers have been revealed in a rebid or a reproposal situation.
Okay, we had a motion. Who was the second?
I was.
You did? Okay, thank you. Mr. Van was second. All right, so we have a motion on the floor, so we need a roll call vote, please.
Does it mean if we vote to do it, we're going to ask for the proposals again?
Yes.
Uh,
That-
The reason I seconded it was because if something was done wrong, we want to correct it.
Well, what,
The motion as it stands, could we have that reworded, please? I mean, to hear how it was worded exactly.
Well, the motion is to reject all proposals and resolicit the same. You know, so
Correct.
if you just vote this up, what we'll do is put it back out. But if you don't want to do that, what we can do, and what I'm hearing, well, I've heard from a couple of you, and you can chime in when you get ready, that we not resolicit and direct staff to prepare a policy or review the current practice and put a policy together.
So we vote no now and then have another
That's
motion?
correct.
Well, but if we vote no now, the way it's on the table, with his motion and his second, sorry about point, guys, then what happens is if we reject this, then we gotta accept that under what our deal is, am I not wrong?
No, you don't. You can
we have
change
the
it.
opportunity to make another motion at that point.
But do
Because
they
the
gotta,
item is still under consideration.
okay. Just making sure.
Or alternatively, Mr. Tucker, an alternative agenda item could be placed on for Monday.
Yes.
Yes, which would redirect staff to do.
Mhm.
Because I don't think it's likely to be on the consent agenda one way or the other.
That's probably true. And what we'll do if there is a motion to reject proposals and not rebid, then when we prepare the agenda for the council meeting, whatever the successful motion was, if that was it, then we'll recraft the agenda item to be that which was approved, rather than moving the item as it is currently worded on committee.
Is there any more discussion?
When the information is given back to us, assuming that we get to the point of directing staff to do that, I would like to see what the numbers are based on the proposals that were submitted based on incorrect towing numbers. I would like to see what that number is on the corrected towing numbers when we get the information back. Does that make sense?
That'd be part of
You wanna know what their
another
number was?
motion
Yeah,
if
I
we
think the
did
number
that.
we got was about 1/2 of what it would normally be. And I would like to see that number as well, so when we do consider the rules and regulations, we understand what the financial impact would be as well.
So,
I'm sorry, Mayor, the number of,
Yeah, the number of vehicles towed per year was based on incorrect information. I would like to see what the correct information is.
any other discussion? Roll call?
Deputy Mayor James Gully,
No?
Janie Boydston, Dan Hall,
No.
Marlon Coleman,
Yes.
Wayne Johnson,
No.
Leanne Langston,
No.
Ivory Van,
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
No.
Okay, that motion failed.
I make a motion that we reject the proposals and that we pursue not resoliciting, and we direct staff to develop procedures to enforce a policy that would, we direct staff to develop procedures of accountability with record services.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I want to go back to what the mayor was asking earlier. So does that address our ability to be able to get the correct information before we make a decision one way or the other? Or does this say we won't be bidding it out at all?
I think what I would like to see us do is get the information back on what the financial impact is and then decide
Yeah.
whether or not we would want to do that, which I think we could do the way the motion's worded.
Is that correct? That we
Yes.
can? Okay.
So this motion basically only says we'll go out and get the information and then make a decision.
Well, it rejects the proposals,
Right.
Okay.
but you can always go out at any time after that. So the short answer to your question is yes. Because with what Committee Member Johnson has said, with his motion, the bids would be rejected, or the
Okay.
proposals be rejected. They would not be resolicited, okay, at this time. Now, staff would also then be directed to prepare policies and procedures to bring back to the council for approval. If at that time, the council determines that those policies and procedures would be ineffective, then they certainly at that time could authorize proposals be relet.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor James Gully,
Yes.
Janie Boydston,
Yes.
Dan Hall,
Yes.
Marlon Coleman,
No.
Wayne Johnson,
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
No.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Item number 7.
Consider approval of lowest and best bids from Simpson Carpentry in the amount of $22,825 for 2 structures, and Tom Crabtree in the amount of $15,550 for 1 structure to repair a total of 3 structures through the Muskogee Rehabilitation and Revitalization Program, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Garvin.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, The inspection department received bids to repair 3 structures under the City of Muskogee Rehabilitation and Revitalization Program, which is our housing program. The 3 structures to be repaired was 908 South B Street, where Mr. Simpson was low bid at $13,525. 937 South F Street, Mr. Simpson was also low bid at $9,300. And 1116 South B, where Mr. Crabtree was low bid at $15,550. Total amount to repair the 3 structures was $38,375. A copy of the bid tabulation sheet was in your packet with the bid results. We are recommending approval to award the lowest and best bid to Simpson Carpentry in the amount of $22,825 to repair 2 structures, and Mr. Crabtree in the amount of $15,500 to repair 1 structure, for a total of 3. And this program is funded through a grant from the City of Muskogee Foundation. Be glad to answer any questions.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
Item number 8, the motion passes, excuse me. Item number 8.
Consider approval of lowest and best bid from Bob Howard Dodge in the amount of $25,995 for the purchase of 1-ton crew cab and chassis for fiscal year 2014-2015 for water distribution, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Swepston.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. We went out for bids for a 1-ton crew cab and chassis. 7 total bids, including the state contract bids, were received. Of those, the 3 lowest were the state contract prices. Of those, the best bid was Bob Howard for a Dodge. The basis on the recommendation of the best bid is it is consistent with the fleet, staying with the crew cab Dodges that we currently have, and also it has a 5-year, 100,000-mile warranty versus one of the other competitors, which is a 5-year, 60,000. One of the other competitors currently does have a 5-year, 100,000, but it is not consistent with the fleet, and they have already released about 2 months ago that their warranty is dropping for the 2016 models to a 5-year, 60,000 as well. So based on all the information that it stays consistent with the fleet and has the longer warranty, we recommend Bob Howard Dodge, $25,995. Be happy to answer any questions.
I guess the Bob Harley one was the one with the lower, the warranty and everything?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Is the warranty by the manufacturer or is it by the dealer?
It is by the manufacturer.
So we're not actually approving the lowest and the best, we're approving the best
That is correct, the best.
in accordance with the specs that you need to be able to operate.
Correct.
Correct. Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
No.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
That concludes the business of the Finance Committee, so we will adjourn.
We'll now call to order the Public Works Committee meeting for April 7th, 2015. Item number 1, Pam.
Consider approval of Public Works Committee minutes of March 17, 2015.
Any additions or changes?
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item number 2.
Hold a public hearing to consider approval of an ordinance amending the Muskogee City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 90, zoning regulations, Chapter 90, zoning regulations, Article 8, residential districts, Article 12, on-site development standards, Article 18, definitions, by amending Section 90-08-04, residential district design standards, Section 90-12-04, D, detached garages, Section 90-18-04, definitions, providing for codification, repealer, severability, or take other necessary action.
We are now in the public hearing. Mr. Garvin.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, just to give you a little bit of background, back in January of this year, at one of the city council meetings, there was some discussion about the building design standards that was adopted as part of the zoning regulations. At that meeting, it was determined by council that you requested it be sent back to Planning Commission and asked them to review those standards. In particular, the stucco requirements or the building materials approved or prohibited, and the use of metal on accessory buildings. So for the past couple of months, Planning Commission has been going through, they have reviewed the regulations, and they have made the following recommendations. And there's 3 recommendations. The first one is adding subsection G to section 900804 in the residential district design standards. This is a new section. They're stating that metal roofs within residential districts shall be decorative metal tile, metal shakes, or metal shingles as approved by the planning director or his or her designee. Corrugated metal, R-panels, standing seam, or other metal panels are prohibited. Metal roofs on residential structures located within the A agricultural district, the RA residential agricultural, and the R5 mobile homes shall be exempt from this requirement. That was the first change. Second change was a revision to subsection F in section 90-12-04 on-site development standards. It states detached garages and other detached accessory structures larger than 120 square feet constructed after the date of the adoption of this ordinance shall be consistent with the architecture and design of the principal building. Consistency of design shall include the use of the same palette of materials approved for residential construction. Detached garages or detached accessory buildings located within the A agricultural, the RA residential agricultural, or the R5 mobile home shall be exempt from this requirement. Basically, previously, the ordinance stated that an accessory building had to be the same palette of materials as the main structure. In other words, if the main structure was a brick, your accessory building would typically have to be brick. Now what they're saying, it can be any material as long as it's the approved material for the principal building. That'll still exclude metal. Metal won't be allowed because it's not approved for the main structure.
So it could be siding.
It could be siding,
Okay.
vinyl siding, basically anything other than metal.
Other than
Metal's
metal,
about the
okay.
only thing that was prohibited for residential use.
And when we discussed this, it got brought up that you could build a metal building and still put like a brick facade around it or something like that also to make it inside the guidelines.
Okay.
The last change was to section 90-18-04 definitions, and there were several definitions added for building materials. We had a total of 16 definitions, and we listed definitions for both the permitted and prohibited materials. And there is a list of the building materials that the definitions were provided, and the full definition was included in your packet as part of the ordinance. This was recommended for approval by Planning Commission. Be glad to answer any questions.
I want to be sure I'm clear about the stucco part again.
Yes, which the definition for stucco, which what we did is gave definitions for all the building materials.
Okay.
And on stucco, it states, means an exterior project made mostly of Portland cement, sand, and lime, typically applied with 2 base coats at a minimum of 3/8 to a 1/2 inch thick, and a final coat with a color finish that can either be cement or acrylic based, and with a total thickness of the final product being, as a rule, a flat surface with a minimum of 5/8 when covered masonry and 7/8 when all other material.
Okay, so we could use stucco as long as it's actually stucco.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Where's that definition, Gary? What page is it on?
That is the last page, second to the last page of the ordinance.
Page 12.
I haven't got it up on my computer, but it's the second to the last page of the ordinance.
It's the 13th.
And there was a lot of discussion in planning and development about this to make sure that you're just not able to pour some stuff in a bucket of paint and wipe it on. That it actually has to be of this finish, and it has to meet these criteria.
Gary, just for the record, why do you not like metal buildings and metal roofs inside residential areas, just for the record?
Which Planning Commission discussed that in length. They felt like, first of all, they felt like it brought down the property values of the structure. The appearance is just not what is pleasing. And those were the main 2 issues.
So it's not a safety issue for high winds or anything like
No.
that? Okay.
But we also discussed an alternative, because instead of just the ridge seam, there are metal roofs out there that looks like the shake shingles. There are metal roofs that take on a regular shingle look that maybe cost a little bit more, but you can get the metal roof durability with that kind of product.
And those would be allowed.
Okay.
If it's the decorative metal or they look like the shingles.
I have one speaker that would like to speak to this issue. I don't know if we have any more questions for Mr. Garvin right now, or we'd like to hear from Jeff Bonebreak. Jeff, if you're ready, we need your name and address, if you don't mind, please, sir.
Thank you. It's Jeff Bonebreak. I'm with Morton Buildings. The address is P.O. Box 1388, Muskogee, Oklahoma 74402.
Okay, Jeff, you'll have 5 minutes.
I'd like to speak about the ban of the metal siding or metal roofing from residential structures, whether that be housing or accessory buildings. It sounds like the intention is to create a more attractive building by eliminating the metal siding. But my belief, my understanding is that it's not necessarily the siding or the material that goes on the building that creates an attractive building. It's the design of the building, the style of the building. There's certain design features that tend to create a more attractive building, things that have been adopted by other cities to the same effect, such as roof pitch, height requirements, overhang requirements, that regardless of the material used to construct the building will still create an attractive building. The metal allows that to be done at a more reasonable cost. It is also an extremely long-lasting material requiring little to no maintenance and generally for the next 20 to 30 years, whereas a typical wood or vinyl siding would probably need quite a bit of maintenance in that same time period or replacement. I did put together some information to show you that eliminating the metal siding in a post-frame style of building can be quite a bit expensive to use other types of siding because of the additional framing and things that need to be done to accommodate sidings other than metal, horizontal sidings or vinyl sidings, brick siding especially. The cost burden for those types of sidings can easily double the cost of a building. And that's just for post-frame or metal frame structures. However, post-frame and metal frame companies, suppliers, manufacturers are pretty heavily represented in the city of Muskogee. Morton Buildings, we've been here since '74, Wheeler Metals, USA Barnes, just outside of city is Burroughs Post-Frame Supply. So there is a large number of companies that manufacture these type of buildings which would essentially not be able to build those types of buildings within city limits, or it would be unlikely due to the large cost increase due to the requirements here. So I'd like to give to you some information that I put together that looks at different zoning codes, especially one done by Oklahoma City that creates that more attractive look while still allowing the metal roofing and siding. And I've also have a brochure of ours that has some pictures of all metal buildings that, in my opinion, are attractive. I think most people would probably agree. Would also want to note that just because a building is built with brick or stucco or vinyl or wood siding does not instantly make it a more attractive building or increase the property value. If it's still built with a low roof pitch or in an unattractive style or especially tall or high eaves, it can be just as unattractive as a metal building with the same style and same features. So I don't know how you want me to get this information to you, but I have it here.
Mr. Hall? Or is
You
this-
can hand it to the city clerk and she can distribute it to us. I got a quick question. Gary, now, when, in our meeting, go ahead. In our meeting, we discussed about alternative siding and stuff like that, and it would have to go to the adjustment board, right?
Yeah, if you don't comply with the requirements, you would have to go through the Board of Adjustments and get a variance. That is an option on the variance. And there were several different items discussed. We looked at several different ordinances and regulations. We do have some standards in there now as far as the roof pitch, having a overhang on the eaves, those requirements in there. They also talked about, on the accessory building, looking at possibly increasing the square footage from 120 to 400 or 500 square feet before requiring it to meet this requirement. They also talked about putting up a privacy fence in the backyard if you do an accessory building to kind of hide it to some degree. So there was a lot of options discussed during the Planning Commission meeting over the last few weeks, several weeks.
And the reason I bring that up is that when we put this in, there are other options, so we're not completely doing away with the metal building. We're just putting in a building code that is maintainable, and it has to go to the department, the adjustment board, if they want to try a certain design on a metal building. So.
And they're not completely prohibited within the city limits, because they are exempt. It is exempt if you're zoned A, agricultural. It is exempt if you're zoned RA, residential agricultural, which used to be the urban estates, being 1 acre or more. So if it's zoned urban or residential agricultural, it's still allowed. And then if it has a mobile home zoning, R5 zoning, it's still allowed.
Say that again on the zoning. In a commercial zoned area, you would be able to use metal roof and
No.
siding? You would
Well, in the
not.
commercial, this is for residential, what we're
Right.
dealing with now. In the commercial, you're not allowed to use the metal siding. You can use the metal roof in commercial, the standing seam metal roof.
Right.
In industrial, the whole thing can be metal in
Right.
industrial zoning. But for this purpose, for single-family dwelling, on this ordinance, if it's zoned agricultural, residential agricultural, or R5 mobile home, if you got any one of those 3 zoning classifications, you can do the metal house, metal roof, metal accessory building.
So during our research, did we research any other city ordinances and see
We
what?
looked at, yes, we looked at several other city ordinances. There were several options out there. Planning Commission reviewed them, and that was what Planning Commission recommended, is what we presented today.
And this is kind of a cleanup, because when we were initially looking at this plan, we felt like we voted on it, because all of us we voted on this already. Why was it excluded from the initial ordinances? And we just figured that it was just overlooked, because we actually passed, the planning and development actually passed this to move it forward several months ago, but it didn't get on properly, so we come back to clean it up and put it on. And I'm glad it kind of went that way, for the simple reason, we got to look at a little bit more things about it and clean it up a little bit better. So it's not so restrictive, and we leave some areas where you can make some adjustments to it. You just have to go through the adjustment board to do some of those things.
Dan, in the conversation that you all had, was there, and where we start specifying thicknesses of materials and stuff like that, are there any paint products that are cementitious based that do not qualify under these thickness requirements that do qualify as a stucco product? And Wayne may be able to answer that as well.
They're all gonna be under that same guidelines. They're all gonna be.
I go back to a few years ago on a mini storage construction. Sherwin-Williams made a product that was cement-based that you rolled on that was considered a stucco. And it would not come anywhere near being 5/8 of an inch thick. But it was in their terminology, a stucco product.
Which typically, that's the final coat you put on the stucco to
No,
give the
this
color
was the
tint.
real product.
Okay.
Because when we were discussing that, and we looked at different materials and stuff, and we had him look at and bring forward to us about different, I guess you call it the base product that it goes on.
Right.
And then we got to the point where we talked about flat metal surfaces and applying that to it. And it's to give it the stucco look and not so much the rigid metal look, taking a piece of corrugated metal and painting over it and saying, man, that's stucco, we're good with that. And it was kind of to prevent that from happening. And that's kind of where we went with it, but we asked more detail about, because you see them put the styrofoam on sometimes and go over that with the stucco, and that's about 5/8 and stuff. It's just that the different coats and stuff, we did talk about a lot of that, and we got to this right here, and we kind of felt like that would eliminate a lot of headaches and allow us to have a building code that puts us into what we want our city to look like in the future.
I think there'll always be the challenge where there'll be new and innovative products that'll be out there that just don't fit into the code. And then we'll have to go back and try to fit them in and make exceptions for those
Didn't
codes.
we have that already come up on the Martin Luther King?
Yeah, yeah.
constru-
And
on
that's
some
where they
architectural-
reviewed those, where you have an architectural metal panel
Yes.
that wouldn't be accepted, but now, and you have to make exceptions for that. But a lot of times it takes, for those new and innovative products, you really need a time period before they're really accepted by the industry and you know what their life expectancy is before we would adopt those in a code and make sure that they're quantitative for our community too.
So on a case-by-case basis, we
Yeah,
would make
yeah,
that decision.
and that's one of the things that we're just gonna have to look at from a code perspective, and, it'd be nice if we go, hey, it's done, the codes are done.
Yeah.
That's
be
something
done.
that we're just gonna have to, there's new products developed all the time. But most of the drive-its or stuccos or that are all gonna be of that same structural type base. So I think they really caught a lot of the products all with that one grouping and with that layered type structure. But there will be innovative products that may not meet that, but they can come back and look at that from a case-by-case basis.
Do we know yet, Gary, what other cities our size are doing in terms of residential homes with metal roofs?
A lot of cities don't have requirements as far as prohibiting metal. Some cities do. There's not actually a whole lot, but some cities do. Some just have additional requirements that you have to comply with. And again, we tried to look at several different cities and put together different proposals and different options. And Planning Commission did look at all of them and made the decision to move this one forward.
Okay.
Some of them are addressing them as far as areas of town, zoning areas.
Yeah, a lot of them.
And you can take a certain area of town where you want to see developments occur and allow metal homes to occur in that area.
Okay.
Metal housing, siding, and then the home, and so that we want to see redevelopment in this area. So we could allow metal siding, metal roofs, and all that to take place in this area, and that. So when you move into this area, and that ordinance is developed for that zone of town.
So if we did have a builder, for example, to come to town and want to develop a subdivision or something, and part of his plan included some metal roof, some regular roof, he would be at least able to go through the proper channels to have that approved as an exception.
He could go through the Board of
Okay.
Adjustments and request a variance to it to allow it
Okay.
in that addition.
It's very hard to keep up on zoning and stuff, and like we all talked about, there's new stuff all the time. It's gonna be fluid, and I think, I think this looks great. I think you all did a really good job. You've responded to some questions and concerns, and we're gonna continue to have them, but I've moved that we go forward with this. I move to approve.
We're seeing I haven't closed the public hearing, but I will
Would you
now
do that,
close the
please?
I will now close the public hearing since we have no other speakers to this issue. So public hearing is closed. Any other discussion amongst this committee?
Gary, let me ask you this. So on a residential area, you can't have a metal building in a residential area, correct?
Once this is adopted, yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Unless it's less than 120 square feet.
When y'all made this decision, did y'all think about what the effect that it has on the people that has businesses here? What's it doing to their business?
Yes, and there were several of them that showed up at Planning Commission.
So what did they think about that?
Most of them was opposing it.
I mean, we were talking about, that's why we just got through coming out of, about these, records. These people, like I say, there's 3 buildings, I mean, contractors here, am I correct, sir? That, I mean, we're not, us having this, can't have metal buildings in our, you know, yard. I got a metal pool house. It looks nice. These buildings here, they look nice on this pamphlet. I mean, still, you're affecting people's business.
Yes.
To me, I mean, if it was income-wise, they're making less money if we're not giving them what they need.
And I understand what you're saying, and we discussed that in the planning and development meeting to great extents, just like some of the ideas that you brought up. But at the same time, you have a group of residents that live in our city that have property values that don't want to be able to have their house next to a house that just got a metal roof put on it, and it decreases the value of their house. That was some of the stuff that was brought in, and that could possibly happen. So we that's why we put it the way we did. That's why we covered such a wide variety of areas about the different metal roofs that you could use, the different shingle looks and different stuff like that. So we're not trying to put this man out of business, or we're not trying to hurt his business anyway, because I think the way we did the ordinance is possibly the best way we could have done it and still allow them to build metal buildings and stuff in places, put metal roofs in places, and still have the variance committee kind of float that through if whatever they needed to do in that area. I think we tried to touch on everything. I don't think that we were trying to be mean or angry or cause anybody any business. I just think that to get where we need to be as a city, I think we had to do it like this. I mean, I know it's not going to fit every neighborhood, and that's why we have the variance committee, to make sure that if it fits there, then they can have it.
That's what I'm saying. You're talking about fit every neighborhood. You kind of segregating the neighborhoods, aren't you? I mean, to me, a metal roof, just like he was saying, metal roof is gonna last a lot longer than a shingle roof, any day.
Not necessarily true.
Disagree with you, Mr. Johnson.
In relationship, and it depends.
All about that.
I know you're the building maintenance person at
Yeah.
schools, but I disagree with you
Okay.
on that.
But here is a balance that has to take place. We have to look at our citizens and where they are as far as property owners and protecting them and their property values, and also the business and the businesses that are in town. Primarily, these businesses are not in the home building business. They're in construction business that can be of barns, out structures. It's not for homes. Now, they are getting into that area, but that's really a new area for them. They build larger structures, and that's what the intent is for. We have a means where they can do that, but it's gonna have to go through, it's gonna have to be a review process.
And just for me to say something, is I have a guy that I know that has a metal house that's built out in the country, but his metal house looks like a log cabin. They used the log cabin siding, the metal rolls, to make it look like a log house. And far away it looks okay, but when you get up it looks like you see the metal, but it still is a good looking house. I think our variance committee would let that happen. I don't, and it has the green shake looking shingles on top. It looks like one of those log cabins that you built as a kid with the little Lego log things.
Lincoln Logs.
Lincoln Logs, yeah. It's been a while.
Trivia.
But I think something like that would be fine. But I think it needs to go through the variance committee for something like that to take place.
Well, like I say, if I wanted to put a two-car garage metal building on my property, now could I go to the Board of Adjustments to do that?
You can go ask them. You can ask them for anything.
You can make a request, Counselor, and if it meets the standards set forth in the ordinance, then the committee will review it, and if they approve it, then you have it.
I was just looking around Muskogee. There's so many double-car metal building garages around Muskogee. Phoenix Village, that's a nice area. You know, they have that. I mean, I don't know about Country Club. I mean, I haven't drove around there looking, but I'm just saying, you know.
Just to add to Mr. Hall's comments earlier, the Planning Commission was was concerned about just basically prohibiting it throughout residential, and that's why they've added in the agricultural, the residential agricultural, and the mobile home. They said those would automatically be allowed. Then everywhere else, you just have to get approval from the Board of Adjustments if you try to vary any of the building material requirements.
How about a metal carport?
It would meet the same standard. It would not be allowed because it's considered metal.
Mr. Garvin, one of my questions that I have is there any financial information to substantiate that metal roofs affect negatively or positively home values?
I cannot answer that. I would have to talk to some appraisers and see what impact it would have, if any.
So you're saying you can't have a carport either?
Basically, metal is not allowed in residential.
Wow. All the carports
Except for
in
those three
Muskogee.
zoning classifications or through the Board of Adjustments.
If you
That's
already
like
have it, you get to keep it.
Huh?
If you already have it, you get to keep it.
Kind of like, you know, it's like a dictatorship, you know, you can't have a carport, I can't put this up there. Kind of like you said on those, some things you said before, you know, but I just can't, no. That's wrong. No.
Now,
May I try it again?
please,
Move for approval.
Second.
have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
No.
Mayor Coburn.
No.
And the motion carries. Item number 3.
Consider approval to accept the proposal from Global Spectrum for the marketing and management of the Muskogee Civic Center, and if necessary, direct the city manager to negotiate and execute an agreement for the same or take other necessary action.
Mr. Wembley.
Mr. Chairman and committee, the City Council authorized the staff to resolicit the proposal pertaining to the Civic Center marketing management. Likewise, they even wanted us to separate the Civic Center from the Roxy. Now, on December the 18th, the city received only 4 proposals. A selection committee was selected, and that consisted of 6 members. And that was Roy Tucker, Tish Callahan, Gene Kingston, Cassandra Gaines, Donnie Wembley, and Jean Travail. Only 5 of these members was present to review and also evaluate these proposals. The committee finished their reviews of the management firm. However, they noticed that there was one firm or one company that did not follow the instruction that was in the RFP. And they did not submit 5 bounds of original proposals. So the committee even went ahead and interviewed that one firm, and anyway, because that firm was local. Now, the first interview was set up with all the firms. Because of the weather, the interviews had to be rescheduled. Oxford, Global Spectrum, VenueWorks, and Pinnacle were interviewed, and they were scored. Now, based on their qualification and their performance in the interviews, the committee made a decision to go with Global Spectrum based on their score to the management, and to direct the city manager to negotiate and also to execute agreement with that firm for the same. Now, one thing we need to make mention of is that all the firms that sent in a proposal, they felt that both the Civic Center and also the Roxy Theater should go together to one firm. And the reason why they made that statement is that to avoid conflicting events being scheduled at the same time, and conflicted events would not benefit either the Civic Center or the Roxy. We also have Rick here. He is from Global Spectrum, and he's here to answer any question regarding his firm. Also, too, we have the committee. Members are here, so if there are some questions that I cannot answer, then they will help me with answering those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wembley. Questions, discussion?
Did I misunderstand? Because, did you say that the Civic Center and the Roxy are gonna be together?
No, they were separated.
Okay, I was just double
The
checking.
Civic Center and Roxy.
What was the logic behind keeping them together? Since it was recommended, I understand the comment about conflicting, but I want to know some examples of what that means.
Only thing that they said to me, and Rick, no doubt he can explain that to you, they were just saying that, say for instance, there is an event that take place here at the Civic Center. And then they have the same event at the Roxy, a different event at the Roxy at the same time. So a lot of people can be confused. They may all go over here, or may go here, or et cetera. So it's just conflicting in their schedule is what they made mention to us in the committee. And the committee could have another point too that's in that area, but
This item is just for the Civic Center, and not, next item is for the Roxy.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
I was just curious about what that, the depth of that opinion was in terms of having them conflict, because I think people will probably go to what they want to go to anyway.
Correct.
And I definitely probably wouldn't want one body saying we're going to close the Roxy in lieu of going to the Civic Center if that was people's pleasure to do something different.
Yeah, I just brought up the information, what they brought
Right,
to my
right.
attention.
Thank you.
That was in.
Could we have,
Then, if you want.
yeah,
Your name and address, please, sir.
Sure. I live in Colorado, northern Colorado. Rick Hans from Global Spectrum. Thank you, Council, and thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to speak here. But to answer your question, one of the things that we looked at, not only the conflict, but also the sharing of staff. You know, it's a lot easier if we have one staff doing United Front and booking. If we decide to have a classic rock singer unplugged version at the Roxy, obviously we want to make sure we don't have a classic rock event happening at the Civic Center. So that's a conflict of interest, we think, and it wouldn't do anybody any good. Yeah, they can pick which show they want to go to, but it's still stealing from each other. But more importantly, sharing of staff, sharing of one marketing message. I mean, one thing that we're very strong on our company is event marketing. And we plan on making sure that everybody knows what's coming to both. So it's kind of the package thing that we like to look at too, where we can help market and book both buildings with one staff.
In your proposal, there's a monthly fee involved and then some percentages and stuff like that, Rick. There's no additional fee to add the Roxy, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So there's some economy of scale, so to speak.
Right. And we feel that managing the theater, we already have some really good ideas we want to do there, but it's something that we do this a lot where if there's a theater in town and it'd be better just under one umbrella, we just said, hey, we'll do it as a throw-in and market it and book it. So, yeah.
In your proposal, you talked about a number of cities where you had multiple venues in the same town. Do I remember right that there was 32 or something like that where you had multiple units in the same?
Right. Are you
proximity?
saying multiple units managed by us or?
Yes.
Yeah, we
one
have.
contract and you took care of 3 facilities.
Right.
or
I don't know exact number, but certainly there's quite a few of them. Even the complex that I'm based out of in northern Colorado is the Budweiser Event Center. We have 5 other buildings, and we have some operation and some management duties in those buildings as well. But we have theaters, we have stadiums and arenas attached. So we have quite a few buildings that have that.
Okay.
Yeah, and we don't see too much, it's not really competition. So I think the conflict thing is kind of overstated here. You know, I think that, you know, what we're going to bring to the Roxy certainly isn't going to, we're not going to bring to the Civic Center or vice versa. So
I have a technical question, I guess. On page 18 of your proposal where you talk about management fees, what is the benchmark where it talks about the first 300,000 of improvement, 0%, over 300,000 of improvement, 15% in additional fee? What is the benchmark that we're starting with?
the benchmark is negotiated for both entities, the city, and we come up with an agreement like, okay, this is where the benchmark should be. We agree on that benchmark. It's pretty standard in all of our facilities. We have 125 facilities. I don't want to get too much into our company, but it's pretty standard in all of our facilities where there's incentive to decrease the deficit or increase the revenue. But that's pretty standard, and it's negotiated between the both entities. We come up with a fair number. Sometimes we adjust it. Rio Rancho, New Mexico is one of the facilities that I oversee, and we adjust it every 2 years. And it's pretty, I mean, it's pretty easy process. You know, we're not too far away from what that number is. So, and just to give you a background on who I am too, I've been with our company for 20 years. I work, obviously I told you, the Budweiser Event Center in Northern Colorado. I have 11 facilities right now that I oversee. I'm the regional vice president, also a GM of my own facility in Colorado. And most of the facilities that are under my umbrella are very similar size to Muskogee. Enid is one of my facilities that I oversee. Salina, Kansas. We have Hobbs, New Mexico. We have Clovis, New Mexico. So these are the type of facilities that we're accustomed. This is our sweet spot. You know, we go into markets that maybe are in the shadow of a bigger city. That's our sweet spot. You know, we're not in the major cities, but we're in the cities that are close to it. You know, and we make sure that these cities get their events, make sure that we push the right concert traffic, the right events through Muskogee, and not overlook Muskogee and go to Tulsa, and, you know, because our big competitors in Tulsa. So they're going to be fighting for shows, and that's what we're here for, to make sure that, Muskogee gets the entertainment that they deserve.
Okay.
Can you tell us how big the facilities are that you're managing, specifically the one in Enid? Like, our civic centers are 3,000 some odd seat civic center. Are you used to managing ones larger than 3,000?
It's a good question. We have facilities. We have facilities. I would say our average is about 4,000 to 5,000. We have facilities. We manage everything up to. We're the host of the Super Bowl. We manage the stadium in Glendale, where the Super Bowl. So our company manages that, but we also manage a small exhibition center that can only hold like 500 people. So everything in between. But our sweet spot is the 4,000, 5,000 seat buildings. And the one in Enid, Oklahoma is very similar size to here. They get about 3,800 to 4,000 people. So,
what attractions do you believe you can bring to Muskogee?
We believe we can bring a lot of family shows that pass up this area. That's including the Globetrotters, the Sesame Street Lives, the Disney Lives. In addition to that, we know we can bring more concerts in here without a doubt. So there's a whole variety of shows. I mean, the way this building should be operating, it should have the local events. Obviously, it's important. It's a local facility, so we got to have the graduations, the local sporting groups here, and all the way up to a major concert. Like in Enid, we had Reba McEntire, and we sold out pretty quickly with her, and it was cost us a lot of money to get. The ticket prices were higher to make up for the cost to get her, but you know what? We sold it out. There was enough people that wanted to go see it, and it was a great show, and it was actually put Enid on the map with the agency. The most important thing here is to have the relationship with the agencies out of Nashville and LA and New York. We have those relationships. We know them.
You, in addition, have Alan Jackson scheduled in Enid, don't you?
Yep. And
is that a sellout event as well?
Yep. Yep, that'll be sold out, and we had Alan Jackson in Salina, Kansas, as well. Again, that's one of the powers of our company is we can buy Alan Jackson for 6 dates and get a better deal on them, and just because the leverage we have, because when a city like Muskogee manages their own building, and they go after somebody like Alan Jackson, and they'll call the agent really wants to talk to somebody that can give them a bunch of dates. And they don't. It would be really hard for them to route somebody like Alan Jackson when they're getting a call from Muskogee, getting a call from here, and all these different areas. They want to be able to go to one company and say, can you give me 6 dates around this time, around in this region? And that's what we do with Alan Jackson. Quite a few. One of the most successful shows we had last year was we had Darius Rucker, did 7 of our buildings, did Enid, Salina, and it's sold out everywhere. and at all of our buildings, and that put a lot of us on the map, and then that led to Alan Jackson, and so I think Muskogee would be one of those in that route. I mean, if you look the venues that I mentioned, it's surrounding. It's definitely routable. That's one thing we look at too when we go to a facility. Is it going to be competition with one of our other buildings? We see nothing here as far as competition. Actually, it's complementary to Enid in Salina, Kansas.
The part that makes a bunch of sense to me is we're halfway between Dallas and Kansas City,
Yep.
which is an overnight event here. We're right off of I-40 by 20 miles, east and west, but we don't have the ability to book those events.
Right.
I think you do, and that just by way of comment, I
Right.
asked Eric Benson, city manager of Enid, and I called him today and I said, "Is there anything about your agreement with Global Spectrum?" And I hate to I don't want to give you the big head.
He's our biggest sales guy, just so you know.
Eric
The city-
Benson said, "I've been city manager for 8 years, and this is the one thing that I am most proud of is our agreement with Global Spectrum, that you all under-predict your expectations and you over-deliver on a consistent, regular basis." I think he said that you had one music event that had not been as profitable as anticipated. All the rest of them exceeded expectations.
Right.
And so.
Yeah, he's one of our biggest sales
Well,
guys.
I wanted to talk to somebody that I knew that would say,
Right.
"Here's where we goofed," or, whatever, watch for this. And he had nothing but good things to say.
And one thing you said, Kansas City, we actually have a facility we took over a year ago in Kansas City, right outside the outskirts. Like I mentioned before, we don't have a venue in Kansas City, but we have one in Independence, right outside of Kansas City. So that's another actually very successful building that we took over that was just dead in the water. And we managed to kick off Ariana Grande's, it's a huge pop star, kicked their tour off in our building. We were the smallest building they played, because our building's only 5,000 seats there. So that was one thing that we really put some life back in that building.
No, I got a question.
Can you get it here?
She played one small building, and that was the one. Now she's playing all the major arenas, 18,000 seats. So.
When y'all go into a city and take over their facilities for them and manage them, where do you get your staff from?
It depends. We like to hire local first. If we can find the talent locally, we'll hire them locally. But there's certain positions that are within our company that we like to do things certain ways. Like a director of marketing is a great example. There's a lot of training in our company about how to become a good director of marketing. There's a lot of knowledge. Industry knowledge where they know the people from the agencies and they trust them to market a show. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that we need to bring in here from probably outside sources.
That's fine. I was just going to make sure that the person that's in charge of our facilities doesn't live in Tulsa and drive down here and work every day.
Oh, no.
That's what I didn't want to happen.
No, whoever the GM might be.
I didn't say nothing about Florida.
I know you did.
Whoever the GM might be is going to live in Muskogee. That's simple. And it's very important for all of us to become part of the community. And that's volunteering. One of the things that we have SMART goals that I challenge all the GMs and facilities I oversee. Every quarter that I want them out in the community doing some kind of charitable work as a group. And it's great team building. It's great for the community. So that's something very important for us to be part of the community. Keller has been our GM since we started up in Enid. You ask Eric Benson how Keller's been part of the community. I mean, he's in the leadership Enid, and he's on the chamber board. I mean, he's very involved with the whole, and ingrained in the community. But he lives in Enid, so.
Okay.
In terms of per capita income, when you look at a place like Muskogee, would you see many of our ticket sales for a brand name person coming from within the city limits or from the surrounding area?
Well, it depends on the artist. When the more expensive artists are going to be the bigger artists, and they're going to draw from outside the area, which is great for Muskogee to get people in here, outside money, spending money in restaurants and hotels. So you'll have some of that. But we concentrate on Muskogee as a market. That's what we concentrate on, and getting them to know, seeing that there's they don't have to drive to Tulsa anymore. They don't have to drive the 45 minutes, and I think I made it in 35 minutes, but I won't. Are the cops still here?
Yes, there are.
But I'm just kidding about that. It would offer something locally now that they don't have to keep on going to Tulsa and seeing entertainment. We don't take every project that we get invited to bid on. There was a town in Texas, I won't mention it, we were there, and we walked in, there was 4 of us on the team, walked in, and we looked at it, we looked at the area, we looked at the facility, and we didn't think we could make a difference. So we told them flat out. We wrote a letter to them and saying thank you, but we don't think we can make an impact in your community. Because we have to be able to pay for ourselves and then some. And if we don't think we can do it, then we walk out. And that's not how we feel here. We feel that we can bring the events. The economics for Muskogee are very similar to some of the other, maybe some of the oil places like Hobbs, New Mexico. I was just down there. I mean, they're just pumping oil everywhere. But but the economics is very similar to different cities that Salina and things like that. So.
Mm-hmm. Make a motion, we approve Global Spectrum.
Second.
Civic Center.
I have a motion, a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item number 4.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Consider approval to accept the proposal from Global Spectrum for the marketing and management of the Muskogee Roxy, and if necessary, direct the city manager to negotiate and execute an agreement for the same or take other necessary action.
And just for this committee's information, I have one speaker who wants to speak to this issue. Donnie, it's up to you.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. The City Council authorized the staff to resolicit the proposal pertaining to the Roxy. Now, December the 23rd, the city received only 2 proposals for the Roxy Theater. Again, the committee was selected, they reviewed, and also they evaluated the proposals. The committee noticed that, again, one of the firms did not submit all the information or follow the instruction of the RFP and did not submit the 5 bound proposals. But the committee, again, went ahead and interviewed that firm, and because they were local. And again, because of the weather, the interviews had to reschedule. Oxford and Global Spectrum were interviewed and they were scored. Now, based on their qualification and performance of the interview, the committee made a decision to go with Global Spectrum and direct the city manager to negotiate and also execute an agreement for the same. And again, like we made mention of the firms making the statement that since both of them were not together, then there was a confliction that would have taken place. And if you notice on your score sheet that you had in your packet, there was 2 companies that did not submit a proposal for the Roxy, because that's what they felt, is that since both of them were not together, then they could not submit a proposal for the Roxy. And also, again, Rick is here, and if there's any question that pertaining to him, he can answer it, or likewise, the committee is here too.
Would the committee like to hear the speaker would like to speak to this issue, or?
Please.
Yes.
Roger Bell. I believe you signed up to speak to this. Roger, I think you're used to this. I need your name and address, please, sir.
Yes, Roger Bell, 1401 Alabama's Drive here in Muskogee. I was made aware of this just yesterday. I wasn't that aware of the situation. So I signed up today because I wanted to basically express my concern about this, that you really review this closely. I understand that I've been involved a little bit in some of the Roxy programming and some of the stuff that we've done over the last few years in the classic movie nights and other things. And I have a strong passion for the Roxy. In a meeting earlier, a couple months ago, with Mr. Brown, I expressed some of that to him there, that I have a strong passion for the Roxy. Being on downtown Muskogee board and other things, I see the potential for this Roxy to be brought back to life. It was kind of underfunded, but there was we look back at the history of the Roxy, and not when it was first built, but what has happened to it over in the 80s. It was basically a shell ready to come down, and citizens from the city of Muskogee did everything they could in their power to save this structure, and it wouldn't be here today without that. It is truly a community building that the city, did step in with some funding to bring it and now does manage it. Over the years, it needs some facelift. We go around and we look at other communities that have downtown theaters, and I see so much potential for this theater. I have no idea in the proposals from Global, whoever, upkeep or maintenance or other things, but it's something we have now. We look at it, when we look at things in our community that we can make better, it's something we have. It's an asset we have that we need to bring back to life and something. So I caution you strongly to look at this, to take it to an outside company like this. My fear is we're going to lose a lot of control of things, local events. We can hear some of that now from him. I'm sure that they're going to work out to the community, but I don't know that. I don't know that you know that, and I just would like you to really review that strongly before you make a decision.
Thank you, Roger.
I'd like to say something.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Aside from the management of the Roxy Theater, the Roxy Theater is a very historic place of significance for Muskogee. And, we, I guess a few months ago, hired a facility maintenance manager to help think through some of the programming of the building, repairing of the building, and those kinds of things. I actually went to the Roxy Theater, and the third floor needs some renovations done and that type of thing. So the city is going to continue to maintain the facility, and hopefully in the next few months we can look and see how much those improvements to the third floor of the Roxy, to put it back to its original state. A lot of work was done several years ago, but there's some bricks and mortar type repairs that need to be done to the Roxy, and so we'll continue to do that. But this is just for the management of the Roxy, and it has nothing to do with the actual physical building.
Now, I got a question. Now, this agreement, if we say yes or no to Global Spectrum, the agreement's only year by year, isn't it? Does it go longer than a year? I didn't see in there.
Well, we haven't negotiated one, but what we've been doing is entering to one-year agreements that automatically renew, and that is how we are able to do it. I would say that the first thing we would do is negotiate what we currently do, and try to ensure that we have dates that are significant for our current operation to be included in any contract that we negotiate with Global Spectrum or whoever we choose to go with.
Can I ask him a question?
Sure.
Is it normally a 5-year or 1 year or 2 years or 3 years? What is it?
It really varies. The minimum is usually 3 years plus 1 plus 1.
Okay.
We have 5-year deals, we have 10-year deals. But the minimum we go into is 3 plus 1 plus 1. That's in Salina, Kansas is the one, but we don't go in for 1 year. There's a lot of reasons why.
I understand.
We're going to have people moving, some people dedicating their lives here. So,
What do you have in Enid? I think that would be important. How long is your contract with Enid?
I don't know if I should have known that, but I'm pretty sure we just got renewed there, and I think it's a 5-year renewal. I'm not mistaken, but it's either 3 or 5.
Is it with the city?
It's with the city of Enid.
Or is it with like one of their trusts?
No, it's the city of Enid.
Well, that's going to be something we're going to have to look into with the city attorney's office on any agreement that we get into. So.
And just want to address one thing. Muskogee doesn't lose control over anything in the Civic Center or the Roxy. They don't lose control over it. We're here to manage it on your behalf. We will tell you this is kind of what we recommend the programming, and get feedback from you guys. We certainly do not come over and control. We want to be renewed here. We want to be here for years. So it only works within partnership. So every time I hear someone say take over or control, It's not what we do. We manage it on your behalf. And as far as the Roxy goes, we understand that the heritage, the history there. It's not going to be this. Just the nature of the size of the arena and the limitations, it's not going to be a place where we're going to do tons of national touring shows. It's going to be there primarily for the local arts and local events. That's going to be the primary. We're going to come up with some good ideas to do with local events. I mean, some of the ideas we want to do is all local. It involves movies, about local bands. So it's kind of, we've already had some thoughts, but it's certainly not going to lose the heritage or, the history of it, so.
Well, the Roxy Theater is totally different to me. I mean, it's a totally separate thing. And the reason is because of a number of things. One, we talk about why do our young people grow up here and then leave? And the reason is non-opportunities. I think this is an opportunity for us to say, we're going to keep local talent local. And there's a possibility of that occurring when we have local people that can run something locally. The other thing is Oxford Productions already has a great relationship with Three Rivers Museum. They already have a great relationship with Music Hall of Fame. And that's where local talent exists, is at those locations and with Bare Bones. That is critically important with what's going to be occurring here very recently, and some of the greatest events that occur at the Roxy Theater is with the Bare Bones Film Festival. So that relationship needs to be extremely strong, and it's already in existence right now, and it will even grow even stronger there. As far as local events, and that's the venue that we're really going to be hitting with the Roxy, because it's a very small venue. And knowing the movies and the attractions that will draw to our community is going to be very important to have that local flavor. Now, I don't want to take away from the committee, and I really respect committee work and what they've done. And I think through their grading, they've done a great job this time. But I think this is where the city council has to look at what's best for the community and bring in the community perspective. If you got any of the emails that I got or any of the communication and the correspondence I got, there was a lot of communication from our community saying this is a good thing to keep local and local connection. So I make a recommendation that we move forward with Oxford Productions for management of the Roxy Theater.
Second.
Well, and I got a question with that. Do we have any idea of how many days that the local stuff right now takes up the Roxy? How many events occur at the Roxy? Out of 365 days, does the Bare Bones and the local band stuff, does it take up 20 days, 50 days, 60 days, 10 days? Do we have any of those ideas yet?
No, I mean, we could get that for you, council, but I don't have it tonight.
I mean, and this is my deal. I don't have a problem with the local stuff. And this is my dilemma with this right now is we as a city council need to maximize everything that happens in this city. And I'm not saying yes or no, but I'm just saying maximize the use of our facilities. Too many times we let things, because they're local, have one or two events there and the building sits in mothballs the rest of the time. That's my concern. I know it's a small venue. Global said that it's going to be used for basically local because of the size of the venue. And then I'm turn around looking at it as Oxford having all these connections is a great thing. And I read all the emails and the text and everything, and I'm glad that they've drawn that support. I like that. I like to see our city come out and support people. But my biggest concern is maybe there could be a relationship between the two that doesn't just completely relinquish the Roxy for Oxford because apparently they put some events in there. But still yet, I would like to be able to say, we're not mothballing the building more than the rest of the time. That's my biggest concern. When I read those emails, I'm like, wow, that's a great testimony to Oxford to have all these people call. But at the same time, how many events are they going to put in that building to manage it? I like to have that information between now and next week to see what kind of events happen there and how much of them Oxford puts in there to better give me a better.
But understand,
Help me understand something. Maybe I'm confused. We're talking about the possibility of Global managing the facility and the calendar for this facility. Why can't Oxford put on productions in the facility that they schedule through the normal scheduling channel? I mean, we haven't stopped anybody from using the Roxy.
Right.
We're actually encouraging and marketing the Roxy if we do that.
Right. We have partnerships like that. We would absolutely look to partner with them because they're content providers, and we certainly want to have, relationships with content providers.
Well, and to speak to Roger's comment on the scheduling or not losing control of it, and you and I haven't had this conversation, but help me understand it. My understanding is if there's an event that goes on here, Bare Bones Film Festival or whatever it is, or an Oxford production or a spotlight that's going on already, and we say, we want that to continue in our community.
Absolutely.
Hands up. You
And
guys
chances
say,
are
"That's
that
it."
everything that happens there like that is going to happen. We're going to continue. We're just going to build on what they have.
Even
there.
if it's a non-profit producing event, we
Right.
can say, we choose to have that event for the good of the community in that facility.
That's what I mean. The facility.
And we trump you in that regard. Is that-
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well,
You can even
We're
put
not
in
giving up any control.
No, even in some contracts, we actually have some of the bigger events. They say we have to block out the calendar for these events. I mean,
Right.
we have no problem, especially with the Roxy. I mean, we know that the talent's going to come locally. We know it's going to be local, but we have partnerships all over the place with very similar companies. In a larger scale, we actually have a partnership with Live Nation, the largest concert promoter. We actually have a partnership with them in Independence. And so we like partner with content providers while we do the facility maintenance, while we do the marketing for the facility. Yeah, we'll keep the book, but certainly, that's something we should look at. That would also prevent us from having two staffs, because I think that's important too. You got to mention that, the Roxy will have to have their own staff at that point. And if they do, that's extra cost. So that's something that you should consider too, that two staffs, either way, we're okay with either way you decide, obviously. But if they have a staff, we certainly will work in conjunction with them regardless. We're going to work really closely with them and help. We'll even help them out when necessary. If there's somebody who's touring that's unplugged and we can get it there. But I think the scenario that you brought up, I think there's an option there that we can partner with them in that facility.
Along the lines of what Councilor Hall was going, and Councilor, you can correct me if I misrepresent something you say. I think one thing that may work to our advantage is if we were to approve Global Spectrum, was to approve to the extent that we can negotiate some type of partnership that would include Oxford production.
Yes. Yeah, I think we have that in our contracts, like I mentioned, Live Nation with Independence. But I think, absolutely, we're open to that. And I think it's something that I don't want to speak for the corporate office because I'm the operator. I'm the guys that have to go in and make things happen. But I certainly, if it's not working, in a year, even though we're in a contract with the Civic Center or whatever, if it's not working and you guys, it's not working with the Roxy, we're not going to twist your arm and say, oh, you're stuck with us. I mean, obviously we want to be here long term. So whether that be with, Civic Center and the Roxy or just the Civic Center, we're okay with either one. But I think the best interest, I think there should be a partnership there with both of us. I think that's to maximize what you guys are looking for here. And I respect what you guys are saying with, the local productions. And we certainly, I think a great example of that is in Pueblo, Colorado. We have a theater down there. We manage the convention center and a theater. The theater's it's bigger, it's 1,500 seats, but there was a lot of local productions that were happening every year, and they were really concerned when we came in. They were really concerned that they were going to be just pushed aside for all this big money that's going to come in. Well, we formed a partnership with them, and they actually have Pueblo Live Series, which this local group is now in charge of. So, you know, it's certainly, we know what we have to do in these type of facilities and work with the community, so.
I'd really like to say that I have full confidence that Global can do the Civic Center. I have confidence that they could do the Roxy also. But we have a small, fairly new company that has seen success here, and I think that we need to support that in a smaller venue. You know, I trust that they can do a great job. I think Global could do a great job too. And if we split it like that and we gave some local people our confidence, I think they would perform and work together. I think probably they would be very open to that also. And if they want to eventually, you know, merge and work together completely, I would be happy with that. But I just think that it would be very smart of us to try to keep something here with local people running it, and especially with some great professionals around to help and enhance that. And I think that they could work together very well, and that's what I'm going to vote for.
Okay.
On the local people, who runs Oxford? Who's the people over Oxford?
Avery Fricks is the owner.
Is that the legal name, Donnie, that's in the papers we have?
But when you look at Global Spectrum, they'll be 25% of the, I mean, there's no additional management fees, but it's 25% of ticket sales.
If you look at the scoring, though, Oxford Production got 224 points and Global Spectrum got 489 points.
They are
All
new.
5 people saw a pretty drastic difference.
And I'm not negating any of that, and I appreciate the fact that they graded them that way. But I'm sure at one point, Global started out as a small company, you know, and probably had to get some experience and stuff. And I just think we need to help some of our local people get some experience. If it doesn't work out, I'll be the first one to say I was wrong and
that scoring is based on huge things. That is based on financial status. That's based on management. That's based on all those. And I agree, that scoring is right on target. That committee done a great job.
Yep.
But it's based also on what you think the marketing potential would be to generate events for that
I think
facility.
you have to take into account, just like you said, it's talking about local. Those relationships are intact. With Global Spectrum, they're gonna have to be built. But when you've got Oxford Productions, it's at 20% ticket sales. 20% they'll take. We're supporting somebody locally that will take 20% of the gate. And then you got Global Spectrum, it's gonna take 25.
I have a motion and a second on the floor to accept Oxford to manage the Roxy. Just for point of interest, I don't think I have enough information. I didn't see the proposals. I agree the committee probably did a great job, but I'd like to have seen the proposals from both companies. So, just so it's not, I would like to have seen us just table this and bring it on to Monday and have some more information, but I'd like to have the same information Mr. Hall had. So, I'm gonna vote no as we go forward, just so it's not on the consent agenda, so we don't have to take it back off. Just to let everybody know, I just don't think I have enough information to make a decision right now, so.
Do we not all have the information?
No,
I mean,
I don't
Some
have
of
any
us didn't get
proposals.
it till later.
oh, okay.
Where'd you get this information, Mr. Hall? Somebody text you or what?
They sent it to a
No, I'm sorry. We uploaded it to Dropbox.
Dropbox.
We made copies for Councilwoman Langston and Councilman Dan Hall because they responded to email, but we can make copies. I just got an email also from Reverend Coleman saying, hey, he needs a hard copy, so I'll get that for you.
So I don't have that information.
Seems like
Apparently
we all
the rest
should
of
have
the
got it.
Committee doesn't have it.
Well, we uploaded to
emailed them,
Dropbox is where we did it, but
They emailed all of us.
I
Ivory,
think-
it was all emailed to us about the Dropbox, it was in our Dropbox, but me and my computer don't get along that they gave me, so I had it hard copied, brought to me, and
Right.
just,
I'll
But
get
it
a
wasn't there, I had to
I'll get a hard
request it.
copy for you guys.
Okay.
Our security doesn't let us do Dropbox.
neither does ours.
So that's an issue. So when you hear me vote no, it's just so it's not on the consent agenda, so.
And
anyway.
Councilor Gully, I'm along those lines only because I would have liked to have seen what an agreement would have looked like.
Yes.
That would have had Global Spectrum and a partnership with the
Oxford.
with Oxford.
So,
I think we're all majority of us, I think, is in agreement that we'd just like to have a little bit more information to make a better decision.
so, but still, I have a motion and a second on the floor to accept Oxford to manage the Roxy. We all agree to that? Any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
No.
Janie Boydston.
No.
Dan Hall.
No.
Marlon Coleman.
No.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
No.
Mayor Coburn.
No.
Okay. The motion does not pass. So item number 5?
Do you need a motion?
I'm sorry, we
Somebody can make another motion.
we gotta do
Oh,
something else now.
What else do we need to do? What else do we need, Mr. Attorney?
Mr. Chairman, you can either entertain additional motions, or we can move on, in which case, either way, it's going to show up on the regular agenda
And that's-
for
that-
council on Monday night.
And that was my intention, was put it on the regular agenda after we got more information.
Sure, I assumed.
Yes, that's all. So we're gonna move on to item number 5.
5.
Hmm? 5,
Number
isn't it?
5?
Isn't that what I said?
Consider approval of best bid from Rig Pacific
I know I'm
in
getting
the amount of
old, so just watch
$49.83
out
per
for
cart for purchase of residential refuse carts for fiscal year 2014-2015, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart, did I say number 5?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
I got it ready.
Okay, let's go, Mike.
Well, Mr. Chairman and committee, this item is to purchase residential polycarts for the city. We do this every year. We always put it back out to bid. This year, we're recommending the approval of $49.83 per cart from Rarick Pacific. We did receive 4 responses. Rarick was actually the highest, so we're recommending best bid. The two, one of them was actually a no bid letter is what they submitted from Toter. Otto Environmental was an incomplete bid. It was not signed or sealed with a notary stamp. And Cascade Engineering, which was actually the lowest, had a metal catch bar, or did not have the metal catch bar. They were a complete plastic molded cart, which did not work for us, and we tried that. We are recommending to go back with Rarick Pacific. It's $49.83 per cart. They honor their warranty. We have bought their carts every year. We continually rebid it because we want to make sure we look at that option every year. They are the best bid. This is a $78,000 budgeted item. It's budgeted out of the solid waste collection fund. It will allow us to purchase 1,562 carts, and we recommend approval.
Move for approval as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mike, what is the average, how long does these trash cans last?
They have a 10-year warranty on them, and Rarick Pacific will honor it right up to that 10-year period. So they're a 10-year life expectancy on the cart.
Okay. I think I have one that didn't make 10 years.
Did
You need to let us know, and we'll change it out for you.
I didn't run over it.
I have a motion and a second, if you don't mind. Any other discussion pertinent to this bid? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman. Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item number 6.
Consider approval to enter into an agreement for engineering design services for installing an 8-inch water line on South 24th Street between the city of Muskogee and Holloway, Updike, and Bellin, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes, committee, I want to apologize because I did not get the actual contract in your packet. I was trying to take off Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and was hustling, and I just didn't get that in there. The contract was reviewed by the attorney's office. It's a standard agreement that we've used with HUB repeatedly. It provides for the preliminary design of the 8-inch water line, the final design, the bidding service, and services during construction. It allows for them 225 days to actually design this line. And just so you know, this was part of the annexation plan that we put forth in 2003. We were actually required to extend this 8-inch water line as part of that annexation. This also was on the capital improvement sales tax, and it was voted for and approved in the amount of $250,000. This is a $20,700 contract in front of you just to do the design, not to actually do the construction. It will go back out after the design is completed. We did not solicit proposals because Holloway, Updike, and Bellin has been working on this since the 2003 point. I visited with the city manager. He felt like it was appropriate to continue on with them. This is a very small project. Holloway is very, as you well know, very well prepared to do this project, and we recommend approval. And I did also put a map in your packet to show the exact location. It's an 8-inch, it's connecting two 8-inch lines. There's a 2-inch between them now, so it's going to make it a continuous 8-inch line, and that runs between Border and Hancock Avenue along 24th Street.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike, since this wasn't put out for a proposal, are these fees comparable?
Well, if you look on the very next one, the next item, we've got another water line that's $20,900, and it's about the same amount and the same size. So
Okay.
very, very competitive. As a matter of fact, we actually used that amount to get the next one down in price. So Prague negotiated the next one and did a very good job. So they're competitive.
Thank you. Move for approval as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully. Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van. Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
The motion carries. Item number 7.
Consider approval of Amendment Number 4 to the Agreement for Engineering Services for North 24th Street and Martin Luther King Street improvements with Garver Engineering, adding additional engineering and survey services for relocation of an 8-inch water line or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes, Chairman and Committee, again, this is an amendment to the agreement we have with Garver Engineering for the North 24th Street project, and that's the project that runs between Muskogee Avenue and Shawnee. We're currently under the design phase, and as you well know, we're trying to submit for a Tiger grant. And in that process, we have discovered that the 8-inch water line currently lies underneath that pavement, and we want to get that out from under there. We also have discovered that by moving that water line and improving it, putting it in a new condition, it will enhance our Tiger grant application, as that will improve fire service and not have disruption of service out in that area. As I pointed out in the previous one, this contract amendment is for $20,960. It's basically the same distance on that water line. Again, Prague did get with Garver and negotiate this down by several $1,000s. I appreciate his efforts on that. He did a good job. And we do recommend approval on this. We are still trying to nail down just exactly when that final design will come out. We should be informing the street committee very soon. We should have a 60% design completion by the end of next month, because that's when we actually have to submit our Tiger grant application. So we're really shooting for a 60% design by the end of the month, and then of course after that we'll go for the 100%. But we recommend approval, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Questions?
Move the approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van. Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item number 8.
Consider approval of the acceptance of ODEQ consent order number 15-011, and if approved, authorize the execution of the same or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart, looks like you need to leave town more often. We're getting some stuff done.
Glad to do it. My wife will be glad to hear that.
Okay.
Frogs may not be so happy.
There you go. Sorry about that, Mike.
Yeah, kind of shipwrecked me, but okay. This item is simply an extension of time for 3 projects that are currently underway. As you're well aware, we're under an ODEQ consent order, and we do have 3 projects that are underway as part of that consent order. It's the lift station rehabilitation project, the Phase 1 rehabilitation, that's where they're going around town and doing spot sewer repair, and also the East Side Sewer Interceptor line. All 3 of these projects were conceptually designed and had a project completion date that is not going to happen. So we sent ODEQ, Miles Mungle, a letter that extended that date. They accepted it. That's what this consent order is. It's a time extension. It puts the lift station completion date at January 5th of 2015. And then, by the way, that is almost complete as we speak. We're just waiting on some parts to come in.
What was the date again, Mike?
January 6th,
It's January 5th of 2015. Oh, I may have that
16,
wrong.
is it, Mike?
16.
Yeah, I do. That's correct.
Okay.
And then the completion on the Phase 1 rehabilitation extends it to January 11 of 2016, and that's just a month extension. It is pretty much on time. It's online. We think it's going to happen in that time frame, given that there isn't any big weather issues or problems with it. And then it also extends the East Side Sewer Interceptor out to September of 2015, and we think that's going to be on time. ODEQ is in favor of this. The reason it's on your agenda is because we have to have the mayor sign this, and we needed the authorization from committee and council for the mayor to sign it. We are under a time constraint. We've got 30 days upon receipt to get that back to them, and we'll still be in time after Monday's council meeting. We recommend approval, and I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item number 9.
Consider approval of renewal of a contract for 1 year with Reed Environmental LLC for biosolid removal and hauling and disposal in the amount of 0.0388 per gallons, not to exceed $107,620 for agricultural land application from the City of Muskogee Pollution Control Plant, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes, this item is on the agenda because we have to execute a letter to renew a 1-year extension. This contract with Reed Environmental was for 1 year, and it had 2 1-year extensions on it. We did them last year. We were very pleased with the product that they delivered to us. And actually wasn't product, but they hauled our liquid sludge out and land applied it. They did a very good job. We're very pleased with it. We want to renew it because it is a renewal letter and it's extending for 1 year. We asked the city attorney's office, and they felt it appropriate to put it on council agenda to get that authorized. So the city's actually asking to have this contract extended 1 year. There's no change in price. There's no change in contract terms. It is a contract not to exceed $107,620. We did put that in the budget, and I recommend approval. Answer any questions.
Move the approval.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item number 10.
Consider approval of awarding construction contract to the bidder Sooner Recon Roofing in the amount of $27,500 for River Country Water Park roof replacement, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Travell, is this the first time you've addressed this committee?
Second, sir.
Second, okay.
Honorable council members, Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager, we're here today with this agenda item to consider approval awarding construction contract to the bidder Sooner Recon Roofing in the amount of $27,500 for the River Country Water Park roof replacement, and or take any other necessary actions, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is the concession across the street a separate contract? This is not both, but just the one facility at River Country, is that
It
correct?
is actually 3 facilities, Mr. Mayor. It is the main water park building.
Yes.
What we call the pump house building, and then the activity picnic area just adjacent to the water park.
Okay.
So
But
it's
you're
3 roofs in
looking
total.
at the one across the street too, I assume, the concession
That's,
building?
yes, sir, within the Hatbox Complex.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's on a future
Okay.
project schedule.
We're not using the lowest bidder, are we?
No, sir, we are not.
And I looked in there, why did they not have a bid bond?
Well, when we contacted them, they said that they had contacted somebody in the city organization and had told them that they did not need it. Now, we reviewed all the department heads and people involved in this project, and this company contacted none of us. Now, let me explain that number that they submitted is a very low number. We budgeted this project, and the second bidder that came in was right on target for the budget of this project. So this $19,713 bid, in my opinion, it was a low bid. The other thing I'd like to point out was Sooner Recon Roofing, we're getting an additional 5-year warranty over the required 20-year warranty that was stipulated in the specifications.
They're producing the warranty themselves?
No, it's manufacturer's warranty. That they're using a higher grade of shingle that carries that type of warranty, sir.
And
At
how
no
long is that
additional-
total warranty?
25 years.
Okay. And so it's gonna last about 12 years in Oklahoma.
Yes, sir. I'm not gonna,
My brother was in the roofing business for a long time,
yes, sir.
and a 25-year shingle doesn't last 25
Well,
years in
in
Oklahoma.
our spec committee, sir, we looked at and evaluated possibly moving the main roof, but it took the project cost and it turned it over 100,000.
Would having submitted a bid bond change the lowest bidder's price?
Sir?
Would having submitted a bid bond
Yes, sir, it would. have.
change their price?
Yes, it would have increased it anywhere from 3 to 6%. But we have a set of guidelines and city council procedures, city ordinance, or city policies that we follow, and we couldn't accept that bid based on, it was disqualified.
How old are the current roofs that are on there now?
That's a very good question, ma'am, and I honestly cannot answer it. There's extensive wind damage due to previous storms on all 3 of those buildings, and we do have some damage to the underlying decking. That's why we scoped in a percentage of decking replacement as part of this project.
Does anybody know how?
When the water park was built,
Okay, when is that? That's
2001?
I wasn't here, I don't know.
Was Mark?
2000,
Oh, wow.
Gary, do you know? Mike, do you know?
14 or 15.
15 years ago?
That's what I'm thinking.
Over that.
It's,
I think it's
yes.
at least 15.
2001.
okay,
Yeah, they're definitely older than 15 years, yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Gene, when can they start? 'Cause
Sir?
When can it start? 'Cause I'm
We're under the gun. They're ready to move forward. Once we receive approval here, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Wembley to finish their qualifications and get their contract organization done, and then they're ready to start immediately.
Because those kids are going to want to swim here pretty soon.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion or comments?
Yes, I was wondering, you said there were gonna be shingles, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's been a metal roof, it wouldn't blow the shingles off, correct?
Yes, it would not have blown the shingles off, no, sir. But with the type of damage that we have, we would have received damage on the metal roof.
From the hail damage and stuff?
Extensive hail damage also, yes.
Now, this company is located out of what city?
Oklahoma City, sir.
Have you checked the background on them, they'd work
Yes, we
and see
have.
what quality they, you know?
Yes, sir, they carry a very good reputation. And their references are good.
Okay.
Move for approval?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Thanks, Gene. Roll call.
Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van. Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item number 11.
Consider acceptance of ODEQ permit number SL 000051150157 for the construction of 1,013 linear feet of 8-inch PVC sanitary sewer line and all appurtenances to serve the Three Rivers Plaza Shopping Center, Muskogee County, Oklahoma, or take other necessary action.
You threw in number 10 just so you could catch your breath, Mike.
Okay. Well, this item, as you well know, because we've done several of these before, is simply the acceptance of the ODEQ permit to construct the sanitary sewer line. I'll read you one sentence out of the letter that was written to me from ODEQ, and it said, "Receipt of this permit should be noted in the minutes of the next regular meeting of the City of Muskogee, after which it should be made a matter of permanent record." And that's why it's on your agenda. It's simply ODEQ acceptance for us of their permit. They have reviewed it, their engineering staff has, and they're saying it's appropriate to move forward with it.
Thank you,
So
Mike.
we recommend approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Something like
Any
that.
discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item 13.
12.
Oh, 12, I'm sorry. Yep, I've already circled it.
Okay. Consider acceptance of ODEQ permit number
Ready to go.
WL00051150158 for the construction of 3,213 linear feet of 8-inch PVC potable water line in all appurtenances to serve the Three Rivers Plaza Shopping Center, Muskogee County, Oklahoma, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart, sorry.
Yes, this is the buddy that goes along with the one that you just passed. It was the sewer line. This is for the acceptance of the ODEQ permit for construction of the water line for Three Rivers Plaza Shopping Center. Same, we recommend approval.
Move for approval as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston. Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 13.
Receive report from Three Rivers Museum from Roger Bell, Chairman of the Board, and Sue Tolbert, Executive Director, and taking the necessary action.
Mr. Brown?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Mr. Bell is here, Roger Bell, the chairman of the Three Rivers Museum Board is here, and accompanied Ms. Sue Tolbert, who's also the executive director for that organization, is here. They're here to do a report and present a summary of their accomplishments.
Thank you. I know it's been a long evening for you, but I want to, it's my great opportunity to tell you about our last year for Three Rivers Museum. Muskogee's history is very important to our community, as it is any community and its culture. And we are the proud part of being the resource for the preservation of the history of Muskogee. That's in the area, but that's our main focus. We operate now, when we first started this project, and I've been involved in it now for over 20 years, it's hard to believe, but when we first started, we only had one, we were just a dream, but now we operate 2 facilities. We operate also the Thomas Foreman Home, which we took over from the Oklahoma Historical Society about 2003, and the Three Rivers Museum, both in restored historic buildings in our community. We have a very rich and exciting history. You know, we sometimes as Muskogee people, we don't realize the difference people that have an interest in our history. You know, the national and almost international interest in a figure like Bass Reeves, or the Girl Scouts. In 2017, we're going to have the 100th anniversary of the Girl Scout cookie in Muskogee, hopefully. So just a lot of things that we have. Our culture, friends of mine that are historians in Chicago and different parts of the world marvel at our Western history. And we've tried to be a showcase to that history to many visitors, and we've had visitors from every state, many foreign countries, and I continue to do that every year. Part of our deal, though, is to preserve history. And when we first started the museum in the late 1990s, one of our first meetings, we had 10 artifacts. We now, I'm guessing, just a rough guess, is about 40,000 artifacts in our collection. Every year we get some really exciting things. This has been no exception. We've had several great collections that we have got this year, and we will continue to develop our collections into the future. Some of our board was here. A few have had to leave for other meetings. We had another meeting at the museum, for example. But this is our current board. We mentioned Sue that's here. Glenn Smith is behind me. He's our vice chairman. And these are our other members of our board, plus our volunteers and our staff that we have in place. Sue is our only full-time employee. The rest of them are part-time. The museum would not work without volunteers. Sue has been very successful in getting volunteers into our museum. If you ever went down there during the time that it's open, or even when it's not open, there are a plethora of people that are working, cataloging collection, doing things in the museum, and this is a strong part of our efforts. We have a lot of events, and we've gone through many of them over the years, and some of them, but I just want to go through quickly some of the things that have happened since I last talked with you. The Historic Home and Buildings Tour is something we took over from Downtown Muskogee Incorporated about a year ago, and we did our first one last year. We learned a lot of things in the process, but we'll do that again. We're going to move it to a different time next year, probably in the fall, September, I think, when it's scheduled. But it's a really neat to take people out. The people that went on the tour this year really got some great opportunities going in the Masonic Temple, seeing some of these historic structures. And the one that you see here is a restored building from an owner that came here from California, just interested in the architecture of our community, and they invested in this home and restored it. And it was great to show people what can be done in the restoration of these homes during the tour. Our Bass Reeves tour, our Bass Reeves event this year was no exception. Really exciting, really successful. We see Fort Smith, we see other communities taking advantage of the growing legacy of Bass Reeves. I've studied Bass Reeves for 20 years, and there's more knowledge about him today than there ever has been. There's even a movie that has potential, would really put us on the map even further. And we're going to expand the Bass Reeves Day. We have now that plan. We're working with a committee to do that in June of this year, the last weekend of June. We're going to have a specific Bass Reeves Day in our community, and we're looking forward to that being a really big event. Heritage Days in 2014, we did some things a little different, and we had a lot more vendors and stuff. We partnered with Downtown Muskogee in this event. We like to partner with a lot of groups like this, and when we go through there, we'll talk about some of those partnerships. But this is one that we do, and we brought people into our community. Our Haunted History Trolley Tours has been a huge success for us. We could probably do this 6 to 8 nights if we wanted to. It sells out. We sold out again. Every ticket was sold this year. We do 4 nights of tours. It does generate some good revenue for us, but it is a really good thing. And we partnered this year even stronger with Muskogee Tourism and the Chamber of Commerce on especially our special Bell Star tour, which was one of a kind. And we had great turnout and great feedback as usual from this, and we will continue to develop that in the future. One of the things we do is look for ways to enhance our income stream, do things without here. One of the things that we do is, myself and one of my board members, Jerry Hoffman, worked last year on a postcard book, and we have been selling those. When we sell them to the museum, all proceeds go to the museum. It's not something that I make money on. Jerry doesn't. It's a money-making deal for the museum, and that's why we do that. History Explorers is our monthly deal. 2-3 years ago, we started History Explorers. We wanted people to get involved in our museum more, to be a part of it, be part of our programming. And I think you can see some of the pictures here. This has been a success. We just had an event here a couple weeks ago where we had, and that's some of the pictures of here, we had our local Negro Baseball League player, Porter Reed, come, and we had an expert, an author from Kansas City, give the presentation. Very well received, great night. We brought people from Tulsa, Kansas City, just Kansas even came for this event. It was really a really cool night. And a lot of people had never been in the museum before. We brought them in, and that's some of the reason we do that. We also do a lot of history tours and stuff. We have been very successful in that. That's one of them I'm giving up on the top there. But we go out and take people out to history and bring it to life for them. And we will continue to do this and expand this. Again, we do operate the Thomas Foreman Historic Home. This event that you see here is something that we do now. This is our second year with the Garden Club. And this has been a huge success. We expanded it this year to bring in artists who did artwork on daffodils. It is really great and really neat to see our community groups working together on something like this, and we're going to continue to do that. I wanted you to be aware of some of the efforts we do on this building, which is a city building, the Three Rivers Museum, the former Midland Valley Depot. it was obviously a shell when we got it, and we worked with the city council at that time and working on funding to what it was today. But it was done pretty much with historical codes and some pretty cheap stuff. So over the years, it's had some, pretty strong deterioration. And it was getting to the point, it was pretty ugly building. It was not looking the sharp building we needed to attract people into our building. We didn't come to you for that. We did work hard on a grant through the City of Muskogee Foundation, which it's awesome what they've done to help us on a lot of projects, and this is just one of them. So we have brought that building to life. If you've gone there a year or two ago and looked at the building and then go by today and look at it, it really, the improvements are really noticeable. And as we develop things, working with downtown Muskogee and other ones in these different districts, with the little theater and so on improvements, we just want to. It's exciting to see us fit in and really look the part right now. And this is a recent picture, that we've done after, and the contractor did an awesome job bringing this building back. One of the projects we work on, and a lot of people don't know, is the trolley restoration. We actually have a City of Muskogee trolley. At one time, you owned it as the city, and then it went to chamber, and it got tossed around. But we're not giving up on it. We're going to find some place for this trolley. This gentleman working on it, he comes here from Broken Arrow. He works on it with free labor because he loves it. He is continually talking to us about how the opportunity that we have to have our own trolley. A lot of trolley restoration, they bring a trolley in, they make it look, but this is our trolley. This is a Muskogee trolley. So the work he's doing on it now is it's going to be ready at some point in time. And our challenge is to figure out what we're going to do with it. But it's something that we've not given up on, and we are continuing to see progress on it. The Oak Grove Schoolhouse was another project. Glenn, who I think is still behind me here, him and the volunteer group, I can't tell you how great the job they did to get this here. It's always been a dream of mine to have a schoolhouse as a board chairman, to bring a student program, and we're going to get there. It's a little bit by little bit. The City of Muskogee Foundation has funded us. We are taking it kind of slow because we want to do the right things. We want to make the right decisions. We do have a new roof on it. We are in planning right now. Probably in the next few months, you'll start seeing the siding and the doors because we're getting close to making decisions there. And, maybe I come back to this time next year. We're going to see a completed building, and hopefully in the near future, we're going to see programming where we can bring students into our community, show them what it was like to be in a one-room school, an African-American schoolhouse during the Depression, and have programming for that. And it's our goal we think it'd be a strong enhancement to the area in our programming. We do also, we are one of the ones that produce an historical journal. We kind of went away from that a while, but now we're going back, so we do produce that as part of membership. Memberships are an important part of what we do to keep going. One of the things I wanted to talk about is all the work that we're doing on the Jefferson Highway Centennial Project. You probably heard bits and pieces on it, and hopefully you'll hear a lot more about it in the next few weeks as it draws closer. But through the efforts of our Vice Chairman, Glenn Smith, we've had the opportunity to work with him to the 100th anniversary of Jefferson Highway, which was a north-south highway that went from Winnipeg to New Orleans. And Councilman Johnson's been very helpful in some of the efforts to the city, and Mayor Coburn. And we're very excited about this event that's coming up in the next few weeks. We've worked very hard with the tourism department, the 24th Street gas station that's going up. We're working on that with them hand in hand. And we're doing a lot of the programming. Almost something's going on that in my life right now every day, and we'll continue to do that throughout the time. So Right now, we have reservations from people from 12 states at least, maybe more, I don't know, updated. As far away as North Carolina, Michigan are coming to this event. Well, they're already booking hotel rooms here. Not only that, but we're bringing in groups of car enthusiasts. We have the Sooner Model A Club out of Oklahoma City and Tulsa who are booked about 25 to 30 rooms in our community and coming. And we'll continue to see some of these things. We have a big programming effort. I encourage you to go on to visit Muskogee.com and then click the link and go on to see what some of the things we have going on. We mentioned the Roxy. The Roxy is scheduled to be our Will Rogers night. We're going to have a Will Rogers reenactor. We're going to have a lot of things that night with a movie, and the Will Rogers Museum, and Claremore is also working with me on that. And we're going to have an exciting night at the Roxy. We have bus tours planned. We have Michael Wallace. Glenn Smith has got a very well-known author in Oklahoma coming for the keynote speaker on Saturday night. The Music Hall of Fame, another group working in conjunction with us, is having the Hank Williams Show Friday night for the group and for the community. And some of the other efforts, we see the gas station, and we see the efforts that are underway in the last, as far as we know, the only remaining tourist camp building on the highway route. We are already starting to see tourism come through there. Last year we had tourist travel that came through here. Some of them are in the newspaper. We've had motorcycle groups coming. And with some of the signage that's up in place that the city's working with us on, we also at Three Rivers Museum are working on special exhibits that are underway now. And we hope to keep this up and keep this momentum going as we become a center of this tourism. We know all about Route 66. We're not going to be Route 66. But can we take a portion of those people that are on Route 66 and can we get them to try new avenues to come down the Jefferson Highway in Muskogee to be a central part of that? And the Three Rivers Museum Board wants us to be part of that. Look ahead, we talked about the schoolhouse, we talked about the Legacy Day, we've talked about the trolley tour enhancements. That'll be something we'll do. We're moving the building tour to what we think a better time period. We have done a cemetery tour that's also being moved to a different time. We can't do all at one time, and that's part of it. We probably are going to keep the Jefferson Highway event as a more local event going on. We've already in some discussions on that. These car guys are really excited about the efforts we've given them, and we may get them to come back and other things to do something every year as an ongoing event on the Jefferson Highway. We have a group right now working with us, the Garden Club and others, working on a total landscaping to bring back the beauty that the Thomas Foreman home, the Foremans were well known for the landscaping, and over the years that just kind of fell apart little by little. The efforts that we've seen in the tulips, the daffodils out there are just amazing, but we're going to bring back the landscaping. We have a master plan now that Master Gardeners worked with us on, and they're going to be looking for funding, and this is again a joint project that we try to work on together. Our funding comes from the hotel motel tax money. That's been moved in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years for our funding to come through that. We had a pre-meeting with City Manager Brown. It was an excellent meeting. I really enjoyed getting to visit with him about our facility and what we do. And in that meeting, it was kind of led us to believe that there would be additional funding under the hotel motel tax by what's going on in the hotel motels in this community. I know that tourism probably has more money in our request, but our feeling is that we as a tourist destination should share in some of that, because you can see some of the improvements. If I went through and told you all the things that we have had to do in that building over the year and added them up, I would guess we would be somewhere in 100 to 150,000 range. That's come from us. That hasn't come, we haven't come back to you for that. And that also comes out of our operating budget. It restricts us from doing new exhibits. It restricts us from doing events. We would like to ask for a 10,000, very small increase into our budget for the upcoming year with the anticipated increase in the hotel motel tax revenue. So if I have that, that's my presentation. I would entertain any questions that you have.
I think you do a very, go ahead.
I was just thinking, Marvin.
That's what I was getting ready. I think you do a very good job, Mr. Bell, the Union Committee. And like I say, I enjoy touring that museum myself. And y'all do a lot of great work for our city.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that very much.
One thing I like is the Heritage Days. And I like coming to that. I think the next Heritage Days, one thing I really liked about the Heritage Days is that porta potty race. And I think Councilman Hall and Councilman Johnson and me, I think we need to participate in that.
I hear
Who's pushing who?
Roger, I just want to say thank you for the book. It was a nice Christmas present. I've enjoyed it and looked through it a number of times and always found
Thank
something
you.
intriguing.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Roger, you keep doing a good job, and it's growing, and that's a good thing.
Well, it's, again, it's a passion that we all, my board shares, so thank you.
Thank you, Roger. No action taken, is that correct?
Correct.
Item 14.
Consider approval for the use of Davis Field Airfield on April 24th and 25th for the 2015 Touch-A-Truck fundraising event as approved by the Airport Board on March 15th, 2015, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes, this item was approved at the last airport board. It's a great event. PublicWorks and the PublicWorks director actually really enjoy this event. We all get involved in it. It is just really fun for us to see that the youth of the community appreciate, love what we do, like our equipment, and the faces out there just speak volumes. It's a great event. It does support the Muskogee Public Library Children's Department. It's for 2 days, April 24th and 25th. The reason we need 2 days, the 24th, is to set it up and get it ready to go. The actual event is on the 25th, and we're usually out of there quickly. It's cleaned up well. It's well participated by the community, and I'll answer any questions, but definitely encourage you to vote for this.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item 15.
Consider approval of a resolution approving an amendment and restated trust indenture for the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund, or take other necessary action.
Ms. Epperson.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This resolution before you approves a trust indenture, an amendment to the trust indenture for the non-uniformed employees for immediate access to records for their retirement. Right now, all of the records are updated on a monthly basis. This trust indenture amendment would allow daily changes, daily access of viewing. This is a proposal that was sent to us by Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund, and 2/3 of the cities that participate, 2/3 of the cities need to vote in favor of this for the city of Muskogee to receive this as well. It's a good thing for the employees. It has been presented to the retirement committee, and they did vote in favor of this, and I am recommending approval as well, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So all this does is give them more direct access to management or viewing what their retirement policy says or doesn't say?
It gives them several different things. It gives them daily record keeping. Of course, like I said, they're going to be more real-time access to that data immediately. Investment changes are going to be able to be made daily. Right now, they're made on a monthly basis as well. If somebody changes their investment, it doesn't take effect immediately. With this resolution, it would make that change as well. Our loan distributions right now, they are about 45 to 60 days out, depending on when people submit loan applications. This resolution will also allow easier access to those loans if an employee wants to take out a loan. So there's several different factors that are assets for the employees. It will also allow some financial advising for the employees. That will bear some cost, but it will be on the employees' end.
How does this compare to what other cities are doing?
Hopefully, the 2/3 of the cities will pass this, and it will,
Okay.
we'll be able to put it in place. I can't tell you until all those other cities pass.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston. Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion carries. I have one citizen wishing to speak before this committee. Mr. Johnson.
Wayne Johnson, 1310 North 33rd. I come to you tonight to speak in behalf of Director of Maintenance and Facilities with Muskogee Public Schools. One, I want to thank the police for coming to Special Olympics. For a number of years, we've had the Special Olympics, and we've not had the police department present. But for the last 3 years, we've asked them to come, and just for their presence to be there. And my, how that has changed the Special Olympics. For one, we had to constantly watch to make sure what was going on and watch the students. With the officers being present there, we've never had a problem. This year, it was even more remarkable than what it has been in the past. 2 of the officers was on horses, and what an exciting time for the students. The biggest problem we had was one of the officers was handing out stickers of junior officer, and it was how many stickers you could get, you know? So what an exciting time. And when you talk about community policing, it was evident there at Special Olympics when they were making relations with those students and with those parents. And I just want to say thank you to Muskogee Police Department for what they've done for Special Olympics and for Muskogee Public Schools. On the next item, it is to Muskogee Fire Department. There was a commitment made to Ray Bob to doing an inspection of Muskogee Public Schools, and that's not been done in a lot of years, that there was a commitment to make an inspection of all the Muskogee Public Schools. What I requested is that that be done during the daytime, where it was evident with the teachers and with the students that we're doing inspections, and safety is important during the school day. That was a big commitment from on their time and on our time, and I appreciate them going through all the schools. We're still working on that. Matter of fact, at BFSA, we're working on our second dumpster of doing cleanup, but I appreciate that commitment of enforcement and making sure that Muskogee Public Schools is safe and making sure that commitment. So thank you to the police department and the fire department of working with Muskogee Public Schools.
Seeing no other business, this committee is adjourned.
We'll now call to order the special call meeting of Muskogee City Council for April the 7th, 2015. Roll call.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Present.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Janie Boydston.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Leanne Langston.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
And Derek Reed.
Item number 1.
Consider approval of an amendment resolution giving notice to the Secretary of the Muskogee County Election Board and authorize the calling and holding of a special city election on the 9th of June, 2015, in the city of Muskogee, state of Oklahoma, for the purpose of the approval or rejection of ordinance number 3965-A of the city granting a non-exclusive franchise for an extended term of 25 years to One Gas Incorporated, a division of Oklahoma Natural Gas Company, as specifically set forth in the ordinance, closing the 45th and 40th voting precincts and establishing all the same pursuant to the charter of the city of Muskogee and the revised state election laws, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Tucker.
Mayor, members of the council, as you saw in the background of this item, we had previously approved the resolution calling for the election, and we submitted the resolution to the county election board as is required. We received a call back indicating that since we had 2 voting precincts, the 45th and the 40th, that had been closed at the previous general election, that we needed to reclose those for this election, and that it had to be within the body of the resolution. So we had the correct precincts attached to the resolution, but nonetheless, since 40 and 45 had been created at one time, we had to take official action to close them. So this amended resolution is put before you today. The only modification to the ordinance, to the resolution, is the closure of those 2 voting precincts that have no homes in them. I recommend approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval.
Second. Get a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 2.
Consider approval to authorize the city manager to seek an out-of-cycle grant from the City of Muskogee Foundation for improvements to the Muskogee Police Department firing range in the amount of $75,000 or take other necessary action.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. We are requesting permission to make application to the Muskogee Foundation for an ED grant or Economic Development Grant to make some firing range improvements so that we can compete for to be a state-approved cleat academy. There's a huge economic impact associated with this if we are selected. And so we're asking for permission to seek an application from the City of Muskogee Foundation in the amount of $75,000. This is time-sensitive, requires your approval, and we'd like to submit this to the foundation.
How many of these are there in Oklahoma?
Chief Eskridge.
I'm just curious.
What's happening at the state level, CLEAT's not able to provide the mandatory training for all the candidates that now are applying for the position of police officer. So they're looking at creating these regional sites. And Muskogee is one of the first sites selected for a regional academy on a trial basis that we're going to conduct in July. So actually Muskogee is one of the few places that is actually being considered right now. Tulsa County Sheriff's Office is trying to beat us to the punch, so to speak, but we're in the hunt for this thing, and we've had great support from the manager, the mayor, on getting this our facilities ready. The range is premier to the training in terms of basic state training, and our range it's in good shape, but it needs some tremendous upgrades. Parking, water facilities, a number of things out there that we'll be able to do with this money.
Chief, where do our candidates go now? Is it Ada or Ardmore?
They go to Ada.
Ada.
Ada. And what this will do is if we get selected for this regional site academy, it'll put a couple of hundred candidates in Muskogee year-round that will be staying here, eating here, and shopping here. So it's going to have an impact. And secondly, it puts Muskogee on it puts us out there at the state and says that we value training, that we're a professional city, that we really want to be recognized for our skill level.
Chief, how many of these regional academies do we have? One in Oklahoma City, one in Ada?
Right now there's Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Norman, Broken Arrow, and I think those are the only state-approved academies. Several years ago, when I was in training, we were actually a state-approved academy, but because of the cost involved, we couldn't continue to do it. So right now, there's only 4 of these academies that are state-approved. But this would be a regional, and people from all over eastern Oklahoma would be coming to Muskogee.
So it'd be 4.
Yeah. Well, and what you got to understand is the one in Tulsa, the one in Norman, Oklahoma City, you can't go as an officer for like a small department and go to that academy. It's for their own departments. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's
yeah,
correct.
Tulsa does their own academy for their employees. So this would benefit to this whole northeastern side of the state, where all the little towns and everything could send them here.
Yeah, and right now, we have to hire based on when we can get into the academies, and that slows down the hiring process. So this would expedite our ability to hire and get people out on the streets a lot faster, because we can have as many officers to go to the state regionals as we can get in.
Chief, isn't there 40 slots that would be available? They'd be here for 16 weeks at a time?
Yes, sir. That's the minimum slots. Based on what we're looking at, we could see a minimum of 60 officers in those slots, though.
It's a good thing for Muskogee, and I've been out to the range several times to qualify with my guys and everything, and I'm not the best shot in my department, thank you. But there is little things like running water to the building and stuff, and getting it those nice upgrades that make us a premier facility. I'm in favor of this. Move for approval.
I'd like to make a motion.
Motion and a second?
Go ahead.
You have to be the second.
All right.
Oh, just be second.
However, do we want the minutes to show that you seconded that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there discussion?
Welcome back.
Yeah, nobody's letting up in it. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 3.
Consider approval of the appointment of Cliff Cate to the Merit System Board as the city's position, replacing Rodney Coleman to serve a 3-year term beginning April 1st, 2015, ending March 30th, 2018.
This is a recommendation that I'm bringing forward, and Cliff Cate, many of you would know, local attorney, been in the community for years, has been very helpful to the city in many regards, works very closely with Mr. Tucker, and is excited about serving, and move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments or discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 4.
Pursuant to Section 307B7, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss the requested disability retirement from the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund for Jeremy Pierce, and if necessary, take action in open session.
Now considering a motion for executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. We will now consider ourselves in executive session. We will now reconvene out of executive session. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Janie Boydston.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Leanne Langston.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
We're accounted for. Item number 4, Mr. Tucker.
Pursuant to Section 307B7, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss the requested disability retirement of Jeremy Pierce. After being fully briefed on the situation and having fully discussed it, I believe it's appropriate now for a motion to be made to approve the disability retirement from the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund for Jeremy Pierce.
So
Entertain a
moved.
motion. Motion and a second. Any discussion, comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries, and that concludes our agenda for today. Thank you.